everybody, today we're talking about Mobile Frame Zero, and mobile frames combined with Legos, they just click. Hey everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and I'm here with my good friend Lex. Today we're talking about Mobile Frame Zero Rapid Attack. Lex, what is Mobile Frame Zero Rapid Attack?
Mobile Frame Zero is a tabletop miniatures war game released in 2012 after a very successful Kickstarter.
What ancient? What are we doing with this ancient game from yesteryear?
Hey, we talked about World of Dungeons. That was also 2012. But I think the big thing for us is we're talking about a war game. We never talk about war games.
Yeah.
There's a good reason for that, because we don't play war games usually, but this one really caught my interest for a couple of reasons that we're going to talk about.
So
today.
the big war game is Warhammer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I'll be honest, I have not ever played a war game, ever. I just heard it's very expensive to get into that hobby.
Well, good news on that front for this one as we get farther in, but Mobile Frame Zero was written by Joshua A.C. Newman and Vincent Baker. Yes, Vincent Baker of Apocalypse World fame. And it is also under a Creative Commons license and includes a chapter on how to hack it, which is very cool. Now, speaking of chapters, Mobile Frame Zero's rulebook clocks in at 224 pages. This is $30 for a physical copy, and the digital copy is free. Now, it's worth noting that between setting lore, optional rule stuff, that chapter on hacking, the actual core rules of this game are about 60 pages, which is still nothing to sneeze at, but it is much more manageable than it may appear at first glance. But I don't want to bury the lead here, right? This is a game where you make your own minis out of Legos.
Yeah, straight up.
And that rules. It just rules. It's great. We're going to talk more in depth about that later, but it's awesome. So this is, in terms of mechanics, just to give a brief overview. This uses a D6 dice pool system. Jordan, I know you love those.
Oh, yeah. They're so interesting. You know?
Yeah. So you equip your mechs with various devices that add different colored dice to its pool, which can be used for different things. So for example, a weapon adds red dice, which can be used for attacks, while armor adds blue dice, which are, you guessed it, used for defense. On your turn, you roll up all the dice for the mech that you have decided is going to act that on that turn. And then you're using them to assign the highest ones to the relevant areas, right? So if you had 2 speed boost systems, you get to roll 2d6, I think it's green dice for speed.
Movement,
and then you can and then you can pick the higher one and assign that to what your mech's movement value is going to be for that round. And then, next round you're rolling them again and regenerating everything. So this system is really cool because it's pretty easy to understand and it's really dynamic, which is nice. But, however, there is a lot of back and forth for number checking. So, for instance, you can attack a mech that hasn't gone yet, but before you can resolve your attack, we have to switch over to the player that controls that other mech. They roll their dice pool to generate their defense number, and then we switch back to you, and then you're figuring out if your attack value is going to be higher.
So nothing is really static then. You're always... Your defenses are fluctuating because you're rolling defenses while they're rolling attacks and stuff, and yeah.
Well, that's the thing. They're fluctuating at the beginning of the round, or round to round, right? Because it's if you're the first person to go and then you make that attack, the other person hasn't rolled their dice pool yet for their mech, and they have to roll dice pools for each of their units on the board.
Okay.
So then they degenerate all that stuff, but after that stuff has been generated, the end of the round should be much cleaner because all those numbers already exist. But then at the new round, everyone's rolling that dice again.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a lot of back and forth, especially at the beginning, that I can imagine getting a little fiddly, right? But overall, once those numbers are generated, comparing them, pretty straightforward. Now, when your mech is damaged, they lose systems that they have. So you physically take Lego pieces off your mini that represent the system being lost, which is fantastic. And then you don't get the dice that system was providing. So if someone shoots you, right, and then they deal you damage, you can be like, oh, you blew off the jump jets of my mech. And then you take the little jump jet piece off of your Lego, and then you don't have that green dice in your pool anymore for the next round. It's once you run out of systems, you still technically have 2 generic ones just for your mech's frame, which are just white dice, which can be assigned to anything, so that's useful. But basically, once those run out, after you lose your main systems, your mech's destroyed. So it's a really easy way to track your hit points. It's super clean, and it's like fun to do because, like we said, you get to take Lego pieces off of your miniatures. But yeah, that's basically the overview mechanically of how the system works. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but we can get into that a little later.
Which, this is a 200 plus page PDF, as we mentioned. And so to simplify it to the core, I think that's it. And it's, it's a war game with Lego mechs as opposed to buying a lot of other expensive mechs. But we're not going to get into the super nuances of this game, I feel.
There's not time. There's not... As you may have assumed from the page count, this is not a rules-light game. Even if we're going by that 60-page core rule thing, still a lot there. The rules for setting up your mech battle are very complete and very detailed, from determining your company's point value, as we see in many war games, to determining your deployment positioning. I think war gamers are not going to be left to puzzle out how to balance a match with their opponents, right? That's all here. But this is different from a lot of the other games we discuss, not just because it's a war game, but I think specifically because it's competitive, not cooperative, right? In an RPG, you can be a bit looser because your game master is probably going to just make a ruling on the fly, and as long as the table is cool with that, that's fine, and everyone's having fun, right? But with this type of game, you need to have clear and fair rules because there isn't necessarily a referee. It's you against another person, and you're playing to win, and who wins is important, right? So now, I'm not a big wargamer, right? So I'm not sure how a lot of these rules really stack up to something like BattleTech or Warhammer 40k or what have you, in terms of how good they are. But I can tell you that this game makes excellent use of example scenarios throughout its book. So it's always explaining the rules to you in a way that's really easy to understand. Even me, someone who doesn't really know about war games, after reading this book is like, oh yeah, no, I could totally do a match. I could go back to the guide in this book when I'm setting stuff up and be like, oh yeah, this is how this works and this is how this other thing works. Super straightforward. That said, it's not quick. There are lots of different steps to the setup. And the scoring nature of the game, which can shift like round to round depending on whose mechs have been destroyed and whose haven't, and that sort of affects who's going at what point in the round and things like that. So there's a lot, but it is well presented there, and it seems pretty balanced and fair. So reading this book, I realized how much there was between like me and just having my mech blast my friend's mech. Because when I open this book, like, that's just what I want to do. I'm like, I want to get my Lego mech, I want to blast my friend's Lego mech. But there are a lot of steps before we even get to that point. And we talk a lot here about games that you can just pick up and play. So are we biased against this kind of game? I don't know, maybe. Is this what it feels like when a new RPG player tries to pick up an OSR book? Or is this game actually that complicated? What do you think?
I don't know. And I also haven't played wargaming, but I bet a wargamer would jump in and just be like, oh, it's like this and this and this. Much like, but I'm trying to think of when I was first learning AD&D 2nd edition, or even before that, Rollmaster in college. I was in a Rollmaster game, and it's like, wait, so high rolls are bad? Like I was, and I think that this would be complicated for me because I don't do war games, and there are probably terms and situations like, oh, well, I mean, take cover, for example. Like, that's such a simple term, but it could mean a plethora of things in a game like this. Like, what's the material of the building? Can my laser weapon fire through this or not? And things like that. So I I wonder, actually, I just don't know if this would be simple or not, but it feels like it should be simple, probably from the Lego aspect, because anyone can pick up Legos and start building something, you know? There's no like age restriction or gatekeeping of like, well, this is how you actually play with Legos. And so I feel like this is trying to capitalize on that mindset as well.
Totally. Speaking of Legos, let's get into our next section.
Legos are cool.
My God, these designs are great. Now, like they've got links on their website for all of the, like there's a Flickr or something. They're so cool. Now, the publishers of Mobile Frame Zero can't sell Lego sets because they're not Lego. They're not officially working with Lego. But the book does contain instructions for several mech builds, which start on like page, I think 150 and go to like 200, right? So there's like several different designs in here and step by step, the kind of instructions you'd get out of a Lego set, right? Like showing you how to put them together. And there's also a section right after that discussing on how to design your own Lego mechs from the person who did all the designs for this book, which is really cool. So, you know, they give you a lot of tools there. And there are also useful tools talked about in the book, like websites that sell individual Lego pieces, like the website Bricklink. So you can get like, oh, do you want this special joint piece that you need for the build, but you want to build like 3 mechs, so you need like 3 or 6 of them or whatever? Well, you can get those in whatever color you want on Bricklink, and it's going to cost you like nothing because they're like pennies, right? So in the end, I think this game actually ends up costing a lot less money than your traditional minis game if you're using the resources. Like, I could see it costing more if you were just like buying a big Lego set or several big Lego sets because you wanted 3 or 4 specific pieces from them. But that's like the worst way to do it. The better way is to like, oh, I want to build this design. I'm going to go shop those parts and then have them shipped to me and then build it.
And I could be wrong, but I think like if your town has a Lego store, like mine does, I think you can just buy, like they have like open bins of bricks that you can go get. So I could be wrong, but that could be a fun way too of like, okay, I know what I need. I'm going to go just like dig and grab the stuff.
I'm sorry, your town has a Lego store?
Yeah.
Oh.
I haven't been in it yet, but now that the son is 4 years old, we've been playing with Legos. Ooh. It's been very fun.
Very cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you have those physical locations, totally worth using those. Now, the other big thing is the community. So many people have made awesome mech designs and posted them online on like the Flickr that we're looking through right now. It is actually surprising to me that this game didn't catch on more because there's so much cool creative stuff that people have made for this game. And I like heard about it when it was kickstarting back in the day and a little bit afterward, but like not much, right? And I think my assumption for that, right, is that it's because they don't actually have an official product line like your Warhammer or your BattleTech.
Yeah.
And I guess that's really how those games like propel themselves.
I also like I was a little surprised this didn't super take off either because I have always heard that wargaming is really fun, but it is an expensive hobby to buy your armies and to do things like that. And so if you're a Lego enthusiast, it's really cool to be like, oh, well, I can just build the Legos I want. And how cool is it to be able to, oh, you took damage, your arm is ripped off. Like, we're all excited about that as we talk about it. But that being said, not being able to partner with Lego, I feel, is a hindrance because what this game really needs is a starter set. I need like, here's a map that we're going to play on. Here are 3 to 4 mechs pieces that you're going to build and their stats. Now you get to go fight. And I don't think they can do that because of the nature of using Legos, you know?
There aren't as many resources as there once were for this game. Many of the forums that were up, because this game's from 2012, right? Many of the forums that had been up have closed down. And those did have a lot of great build guides on them. I remember looking at them back in the day. But luckily, there is still a very active Discord server. So you can check that out, and you're probably going to get a lot of the info that you want from there.
Somebody made the Death Scythe from Gundam.
Yeah.
And this
Yes,
is
I saw
amazing.
that. That's
So good.
Do you feel like, just looking at this stuff, you could build a team of mechs after looking through this book and the sites, maybe? Or does that barrier feel too high for you as like someone who's a newcomer or a novice to all of this stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe this is included in the book. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I need a intro adventure. I know it's not an RPG, but just like here's a map that you can print out, like I don't know, 11 by 17 or something, and then I could follow the instructions and build my mech. I think that's fine. That's just Legos. And then, but to actually, if there's three of us playing and all three of us have never played war games before, I feel like this would be a little confusing. But that might be just because I'm intimidated because I have not played a type of game like this before. So,
yeah, I mean, the book does include a lot of things of like how to run a campaign, how to make your own campaign, how to make your own setting. But
a lot of setting stuff too, like lots of
There's so much lore that honestly, because I was like trying to get ready for this video, I skipped over a lot of it because I'm like, that looks cool, but I don't have time for it. I just want to know the rules. But yeah, there's a lot of lore, and a lot of the mech designs are like specific to factions that are talked about in the lore, which is neat. It's cool. So Mobile Frame Zero offers a lot of opportunities for customization, for creativity, for competition. I would say don't be intimidated by the page count. Many of them are really just there to slowly walk you through the gameplay step by step, which is really nice. And while I am not personally a wargamer, I would definitely recommend this to anyone who is interested in maybe learning war games or is already a wargamer and wants to try out something new and has, a penchant for mechs.
Yeah,
which,
and
all wargamers do, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. I would also recommend this, and I would be interested to try it. And so maybe as my child gets a little older, this could be something that we experiment with and actually try some kind of wargaming on the side. It's one of those things where it does feel like the best idea in the world, where you're like, oh my gosh, like we build Legos and then they fight. Like that's so cool. It's kind of what you do as a kid. But now there's rules for it and we can go through that. But I do think that not having pre-built mechs is a challenge to newcomers. Like not being, I really want a starter set to take home and build. And so then who is this game for? It's not for people who are tangentially interested in wargaming, but don't want to dive into the Warhammer route. It feels like it's left for Lego enthusiasts who already have a collection of Legos and could sit down and kind of like, oh, this is a game I can play with my collection. Being that it's Creative Commons, I would almost want Lego to be like, hey, we'll just start a product line. But they probably don't want to start something for Creative Commons, but it's their Legos, so I feel like they could. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
That would be cool.
Like, I wish they would just be like, we're just going to take this and make some mechs for it. And then because it's Creative Commons, they could include, here's the rules. So,
yeah.
But
one of the things I would also really like to see for this game is just a quick start guide.
Yeah.
Like here's like a 3 mech designed team for you, or I guess 3 mech designed teams. So you've already got the mechs, you've already got their stats. Here's the map and the starting scenario. Here's the base rules play, right? Something you can fit into like 20 pages or whatever. I think that would go a long way towards making this game more accessible for people.
If it has the community that we were talking about earlier, there might be a lot of resources out there that are just not known to us.
That's true. I haven't dug into the Discord very heavily. So I would say if you do want to do more, maybe all this stuff does exist out there and you should check it out.
I would definitely dive into the Discord, and I'm sure those people are always wanting to talk up their favorite game. So,
for sure.
Although I shouldn't say that, I don't know. Maybe they're but yeah, knowing that when people love games, they usually love it when people dive in. So, but yeah, that's totally. Mobile Frame Zero. Pretty crazy. It's pretty cool, and our first war game on our RPG channel. But there you go.
Yeah.
That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more Games with Lex. Subscribe and all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next video.